going to talk more about the impact on this right now with our guest, Eric Farnsworth from the Council of Americas. He is the president there, and you've been on a number of times before. I mean, this is a little bit different. We've got a natural disaster here. This is not a political issue. It's a natural disaster problem. They don't know how much it's going to cost, but the markets are a little bit worried about one thing in particular, and that's the mining operation, copper specifically. What are you hearing from your folks?
Well, what we're hearing is that every natural disaster is a disaster, and this certainly is having an impact, but it's probably not going to be long-term. It's probably not going to be lasting. Certainly Chile is not, this isn't the first time an earthquake has happened close to Chile or in Chile. People are as prepared for these sorts of things as you can be. That includes the mining sector. So it'll have an impact, but it won't be lasting.
I have to say, we covered obviously when the earthquake happened, and it was a very strong earthquake, but the damage has been much less than probably one would have thought, and for a developing country, or even for that matter, for the area of the coast, a lot of people thought there'd be much more damage. Are they just very well prepared?
Well, I think it's a combination of luck and preparedness, absolutely. I mean, the luck is that, it depends on where the quake actually hits, where the epicenter is, where the broadest impact is. And the north part of Chile is really not as populated, certainly, as other parts of the region. So that's a good thing. But as I say, Chile has seen this before, most recently in 2010, but also in the 1950s. Very significant earthquake, significant loss of life. And so you've had an upgrading of building codes. You've had regulators who are strongly aware of the disaster that could occur. And so it's a country that actually works and is as prepared for these sorts of things it could be. And I really think that preparedness really helped to mitigate the damage that occurred.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine if an 8.0 earthquake hit in any major city, what the damage would be. The president there has promised a lot of reforms in her first 100 days in office. Does this impact that timeline at all?
Well, it will. Certainly it causes the immediate need for attention from the president and her cabinet. You remember she was in office the last time in 2010 when the last major earthquake occurred, so she wants to make sure that this one doesn't skew the presidency early on in the first days. So that's going to require a lot of attention. But again, to the extent that they move beyond it, it will impact the first 100-day agenda, but it's not going to change it. She's already moved forward with some of the reforms she's promised, whether it be in terms of changes of the tax code, whether it be in terms of increased spending for education. So she's moving forward on that agenda as well, and I think you can expect more of the same.
Are you happy with what she's planned out?
Well, she's doing what she said she was going to, and she was elected with a mandate, and she said she was going to increase resources for education, increase resources for social development. She was going to raise the taxes on the private sector, particularly the international investment community, lower them on individuals in Chile. So she's doing what she said she was going to. There can't be too many surprises there.
There is some concern, not necessarily for Chile, but in the region. I mean, you've got a question mark in Chinese growth, and that they have been a very big supporter in terms of investments for Latin America. Is there some concern that if the slowdown is a bit deeper than some expect, it's going to impact negatively on the economies there?
Yeah, it's a huge issue. China is actually Chile's top trade partner, and in fact, much of their foreign export earnings comes from the sale of copper and other commodities. So to the extent China slows, to the extent commodities markets globally soften, that will impact Chile. The good news is that over the past several years, Chile has tried to diversify its economy, focus on innovation, focus on startups, focus on entrepreneurialism. That effort is ongoing. It needs to go further. It needs to go faster, and the slowdown of China will impact the economy, but again, they're trying to prepare for the mid and longer term.
Speaking of longer term, downgrades across the board in terms of growth for a lot of countries in Latin America, and I think that's surprising even the most bullish folks that have been very bullish on that region. When will the turning point be, or are we at the early stages of this?
Well, I think we're in a process, that's right, a cycle, if you will. Much of South America was doing really well over the past decade because of the commodity supercycle. And to the extent that slows, and again, it's largely driven, not exclusively, but largely driven by China, that is going to impact the commodities exporting markets. But let's not make the mistake of thinking every country in Latin America is the same. Countries like Mexico have a totally different relationship with China. Certainly they have a different relationship with the United States. And so to the extent that the U.S. grows, that's going to help Mexico. It's also going to help the countries of South America as well. So you have more of a diversified region. That's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I think there are some folks who are surprised a little bit by the commodity supercycle slowing. Whether it's ending or not, that's somebody else's.
What about the currency issue? I mean, that's something that's kind of peaked up for a lot of people. They weren't expecting to have a currency problem in Latin America, but now we're talking about it.
Well, that's exactly right. And again, you have some economies that were better prepared to be able to handle those things. I would say Chile, Peru, Mexico, Brazil's doing pretty well. It's not unanticipated. Other countries have pursued a different, more populist path, and they're the ones I think that are going to find these issues more difficult to overcome.
Eric Farnsworth, you sound like a chief economist, but you're actually the president of the Council of Americas. Thank you very much. Always good to have you on.
Thank you.